Welcome to Seeking Alpha's Wall Street Lunch, our afternoon update on today's market action, news, and analysis. Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, October 24th, and I'm your host, Kim Kahn. Our top story so far: the labor market continues to defy the doomsayers. Weekly initial jobless claims unexpectedly fell by 15,000 to 227,000. Economists had expected a rise to 243,000. For perspective, claims for first-time unemployment benefits have been steady in a range of about 200,000 to 250,000 per week since the middle of 2022. Pantheon macroeconomist Oliver Allen says, the fall in initial claims takes them almost back to their level 3 weeks ago, before Hurricane Helene had any real impact. We were looking for a much bigger boost to claims from Hurricane Milton, which hit Florida October 9th. The peak impact of Milton ought to have landed in this report, and the unadjusted level of claims in Florida, 10,500, was indeed roughly twice as high as the same week a year ago, he said. But this falls well short of the uplifts to claims following previous major hurricanes, and was offset by other factors, including a further fall in claims in those states most heavily affected by Helene, a dip in states most likely to be affected by the Boeing strike, and also some retreat in claims in the rest of the country. Also on the macro front, new home sales climbed to 738,000 in September. That topped the consensus expectations of 718,000 and was up from 709,000 in the month prior. Sales of new single-family homes rose 4.1% month-on-month and 6.3% year-on-year. The jump in new home sales contrasts with Wednesday's NAR report on existing home sales, which dropped to an almost 14-year low in September. Both reports helped Treasury yields cut early losses. The 10-year yield is flat around 4.24%, and the odds of a quarter-point Fed rate cut in December fell below 70%. Also in today's trading, palladium is rallying after the U.S. asked the Group of Seven allies to consider sanctions on Russian exports of the metal. The Biden administration floated the potential restrictions during a meeting of G7 finance officials in Washington this week as it considers new ways to squeeze Vladimir Putin's war efforts. Russia's Norilsk Nickel is the world's biggest palladium producer, accounting for about 40% of global output. Among active stocks, United Parcel Service rallied after topping consensus estimates. Revenue was up 5.4% year over year to $22.2 billion. CEO Carol Tomé said, after a challenging 18-month period, our company returned to revenue and profit growth. Peak season is nearly upon us, and we are ready to deliver another successful holiday season and continue the progress we demonstrated in the third quarter. Looking ahead, UPS expects full-year consolidated revenue to be about $91.1 billion versus the $91.9 billion consensus. Honeywell International is under pressure after it missed quarterly sales estimates and revised its guidance downward. The company cut its full-year revenue guidance to a range of $38.6 billion to $38.8 billion, down from $39.1 billion to $39.7 billion previously. Management also expects adjusted earnings of $10.15 to $10.25 a share, compared with prior guidance of $10.05 to $10.25. Southwest Airlines is lower, despite reaching a deal with Elliott Management that would see CEO Bob Jordan keep his job, but board chairman Gary Kelly accelerate his retirement. Elliott has also secured the appointment of 6 new directors to Southwest's board, effectively ending the risk of a proxy war. Q3 results topped expectations, but for Q4, accounting for cancellations tied to Hurricane Milton, Southwest expects unit revenue to increase by 3.5% to 5.5%, with capacity down about 4%. Costs per available seat mile, excluding fuel, oil, special items, and profit sharing, will likely increase by 11% to 13%. And IBM slumped post-earnings after revenue fell short of expectations. Morgan Stanley analyst Eric Woodring, who has an equal weight rating on the stock, says, with shares trading near all-time highs, we think the quarter had to be cleaner to sustain recent momentum. In other news of note, McDonald's supplier Taylor Farms has recalled yellow onions produced in its Colorado facility in the wake of the deadly E. coli outbreak linked to Quarter Pounders. Taylor Farms said the recall was done out of an abundance of caution, and it hasn't yet found any traces of E. coli, adding they continue to work closely with the FDA and CDC during this ongoing investigation. Bloomberg says U.S. Foods, another customer of Taylor Farms, has told at least one restaurant it supplies to destroy the onions. The source of the outbreak, which led to 1 death and sickened 49 people across 10 states, is yet to be confirmed. We fully expect to see more cases, said CDC spokesman Tom Skinner, noting that McDonald's moved rather quickly to prevent more E. coli cases. And in the Wall Street Research Corner, The nuclear sector is getting glowing praise from analysts given the potential from AI. Societe Generale notes that the International Energy Agency's net zero emissions by 2050 plan's most feasible, cost-effective, and socially acceptable road to reach its goal is an increase in nuclear power capacity. Manish Kabra, head of U.S. equity strategy, says all hyperscalers are focused on energy security and that demand is driving momentum in nuclear stocks. Total U.S. electricity demand is 4,000 terawatt-hours and is growing by 60 basis points per year, and AI will add another 50 basis points to annualized growth, adding the equivalent of 3 New Yorks to the grid, he said. He highlights SocGen's nuclear basket of 38 global stocks that are exposed to nuclear power development, from uranium extraction to equipment makers and utilities. Among the names are Dominion Energy, Xcel Energy, Tokyo Electric Power, Shanghai Electric Group, Uranium Energy, and NextEra Energy. Check out the full list of all 38 picks in our story. Look for that link in show notes. And remember,
nuclear. It's pronounced nuclear.
That's all for today's Wall Street Lunch. Look for links for stories in the show notes section. Don't forget, these episodes will be up with transcriptions at seekingalpha.com/WSB. And for a wealth of coverage on stocks and ETFs, go to seekingalpha.com/subscriptions.